Hi everybody, it's Meg from Books Off the Beaten Path, and we are ready for another book review. So this time we will be reviewing The Mistress of Mellon. I'm going melon like cantaloupe or honeydew. I'm going melon. That may not be the way you pronounce it, but that's the way I thought about it all the way through the book. Now, The Mistress of Mellon, this is actually a Reader's Digest condensed version book, which I don't agree with condensed versions of books. That's just not my thing. I figure if you're going to read a book, just plunge in there and read the whole thing. But I had to have this for my collection. First off, I love the size. I love the cover. It's got illustrations. Let me show you a couple here. Here's Christmas. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? The Mistress of Mellon. And let me just tell you what it's about. Okay, so we have Miss Lee, who is the governess who's not supposed to be a governess, in that it's the same old trope. She came from a family. The family lost their money. She's a little more dignified than the regular, governesses out there, but she has become a governess to Alvina. I tell you, there were names in this one. Conan or Conan, Trey Mellon, Alvinia, and Mr. Naselnock. Yes, Mr. Naselnock, who was a contender for her affections at one point. Anyway, so the only person that had a fairly regular name was the first wife, who was the first mistress, and her name was Alice. And one day, Alice ran off with the Naselnock brother. So she runs off and they get into a train accident and she's burned to a crisp, and just, it's been terrible since then. And so the daughter, and I have to be slow when I say this, Alvina, I don't know. They were all Cornish names, and so I should never go to Cornwall because I'm sure I'll be kicked out and because I will have offended everyone. Anyway, so the daughter needs a governess. Enter Miss Lee. Now, Miss Lee is pretty sharp. She's pretty good, except for all of a sudden, and maybe this is the condensed part, all of a sudden, Conan, C-O-N-N-A-N, Conan, who is the master of Mellon, says, let's get married. Just totally out of the blue, he says, let's get married. Excuse me. And she says, okay, cool. And I'm sitting there going, what? When did that happen? They didn't even talk that much. They didn't even have like good long conversations or anything like that. Like in Jane Eyre, Mr. Rochester talks to her for a long time and everything. They just were playing chess, moving the pieces around the board, and he looked up and he said, hey, I need a wife and I'm really attracted to you, and sorry I haven't told you or let you know that or anything like that, but how about being my wife? And she's like, okay, sure. So she becomes his wife. We have another character by the name of Gilly, who is a girl who's been traumatized. She doesn't do a lot of talking and everything like that. We have a villain, but it honestly surprised me who the villain was at the end until we got to the end of the book. And it was just a fun little short gothic read. It didn't take me a week to read it. It was very short. Here's another picture of Miss Lee, and that's Mr. Naselnock. I'm sure it's pronounced another way. I'm sure it's not pronounced Naselnock, but I just can't. That's the way I read it. That's the way I read it on the page. Anyway, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because it didn't rock my world, but at the same time it did what it was supposed to do, which was take my mind off my troubles, whatever those are. for the little bit of time that I was reading it, and I super enjoyed it. I don't know if you can find it on its own. It's by Victoria Holt. I should have told you that at the beginning. It's by Victoria Holt. So let me know if you can find it on its own. And if I can find it on its own, then I'm going to buy the non-condensed part. I'm going to buy the full one because it was a good story and I did enjoy it. It just... that marriage part was really the part that drove it down for me, because I just thought that she was so bright and she was so, I liked her as a heroine, but then when he said, let's get married, she doesn't really question that or anything. But I mean, he's true to his word. He marries her. No spoiler alerts. We all know how these gothics end. He does marry her and they do live happily ever after. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a quick, short book review of The Mistress of Mellon. I'm reading one now called Dr. Hudson's Secret Journal, and let me tell you, it is wild. It's wild. And I have to figure out when its copyright date, when the copyright date is, because it's all in Roman numerals, so I'll have to get on my phone and figure out when it is. But anyway, so look for that review coming up, and I will be pulling out some classics, I think, pretty soon, and maybe have my friend Michelle on again, because that was a lot of fun when I had her on. I think it was last year or year before last, and we're going to be doing some more books, and have a happy new year, and I will check you later.